You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. Sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, July 23rd show. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. To talk with the guest I have in studio, if you want to chat with me, you can call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, first time I've had her in studio, Barb Pexa with Keller Williams Real Estate. We're going to be talking about sellers in today's real estate market. Barb, thank you so much for joining me in studio.
Thanks for having me, Tina. I appreciate it.
And a little bit about Barb. Barb and her team specialize in the Eastside residential real sale and property throughout the I-90 corridor in Bellevue and Snoqualmie. Barb has spent many years exploring Eastside homes with her clients and has a firm understanding of the Eastside neighborhoods and what each has to offer her buyers, and how the market homes and get great results for her sellers. Barb represents buyers and sellers, and her skill across the board has been honored over a decade by buying and selling a multitude of homes, as well as through acquiring a half a dozen of her own properties. Barb, more than 80% of Barb's new business comes by way of referrals from satisfied clients, which is a strong testament to her connection that she has with her clients and her esteemed service. Barb has also been recognized in Seattle Magazine as a 5-star professional. The award recognizes those who provide quality service to their clients. And Barb is driven to satisfy her clients and helps them exceed their goals. She was a competitive swimmer who represented Guam in 1992 Olympic Games, and same resolve, determination, and focus drive that she gets now as evidence that how she works and represents her buyers and sellers today. I didn't know that, Barb. That's really impressive.
I didn't realize it was on there.
Yeah. See, you never know what type of buyer we're going to bring into studio. Well, I'm really excited about our topic. I'm excited to talk to our sellers out there. I do want to disclose, as I mentioned in your bio, you do work with buyers and sellers. Mm-hmm. But today in my conversation with you is really around sellers and what's happening in the market, and specifically with pre-inspections. So what services do you provide to help your sellers get ready for the market that we're in today, Barb?
Sure. And we've been pre-inspecting our houses for quite a few years. This market has shifted quite a bit. As we know, every house that we're selling is getting multiple offers. And we decided to proactively change the way our process was going, not only for our team, but for our sellers' experience. In a typical market, the buyer makes an offer. It comes to mutual acceptance with the seller. And then the seller and the buyer have a 10-day period where the buyer has the right to have an inspection. Mm-hmm. For this topic, I refer to that as a walk clause, because in this topic, I'm referencing that I'm representing my sellers, and I do not want my sellers in the position where they have a walk clause on their contract. Okay. And so we turned the system around a little while ago, and we started doing pre-inspections of all our properties, and we give those out to the buyers and their agents. It's public knowledge for us. We feel like we disclose, and we're better arming our sellers to get through the process that way.
So when you're doing the pre-inspection, just for the listener of the show, it's sellers going out and getting their own home inspection. Mm-hmm. So then the buyers, when they're coming in making offers, they're not allowed to get inspections.
They can have their own inspection, but we are not going subject to inspection.
Got it. Okay,
they can do it on their own terms. We're not doing it while we are under contract. I believe my sellers lose their leverage in that scenario. Makes
total sense. Mm-hmm. So anything else that you can explain on why, or a reason behind doing the pre-inspections?
Absolutely. In my experience, when a buyer has a repair that they find that they need to have done, that they want the seller to done, the buyer always estimates twice as much as it actually costs. Yes. So I want to save my seller money, for one. I want to make it smoother because I don't want to have deals fall apart, transactions fall apart. I really like to control the process. If my seller has the time in advance to do the repairs or get the bids, it's definitely on our terms rather than the buyer's terms. In a typical sale, by the time you get your contract offered, accepted, and you go to close, it's 30 days. There's a lot going on in those 30 days. The last thing I want my seller in the position to do is to try and scramble around and add that much more to their plate when we can eliminate all of that before we even hit the market.
Makes total sense. I think that's so key, Barb, for the sellers listening right now. What a huge benefit, because once the offer is accepted and you've got to go back and try to renegotiate based on issues coming up, definitely the buyer has the upper hand there, not the seller. So because you may hear somebody go, well, gosh, why would I want to let the buyer know what issues? They're going to find out what the issues are. So you want to find out up front.
I agree. There's only about, I think, from what I can tell, maybe 10% of us that are pre-inspecting our homes. And a lot of agents will tell you, well, I don't want my seller to know about those things.
Yes.
Well, I cry foul on that, because every buyer's inspector is going to find the same issues.
Yes.
Why not find them out on my terms, on the seller's terms? And then we can control the process. We can get the bids done. And there's a lot of times we don't actually do all the repairs. That's not what I'm advocating for. I have a lot of sellers that might say, I don't have the money to do any repairs. Well, that's fine too. Everything can sell at the right price.
Exactly.
So a pre-inspection allows me to either set the price right from the beginning if there is a big issue, or sometimes we just get bids, because the other thing that scares buyers is the unknown. I sell houses all the time with significant issues, but if it's a significant issue that's unknown, that's a different story than a significant issue that we have bids to provide to the buyer along with our buyers with our pre-inspection report.
It makes total sense. So what about the closing process when a seller is doing a pre-inspection before listing the home so that they're prepared? How is that changing and bringing the benefits to the closing process?
Tremendously.
Okay, can you share that with my listeners?
Instead of going what we call subject to inspection, where then the buyer has that what I call the walk clause, we're going straight to pending, and that means the very next day the buyer can order their appraisal. So we're shaving off 10 to 15 days on the closing process, because we're not having all that round of negotiations if something does come up on the inspection report. In Washington State, a buyer can go through and do an inspection and not like a scratch on the wall and can terminate based on that. It's really buyer's discretion.
Yeah.
So the fact that we can eliminate that whole 10 to 15 days is huge in both the hassle factor of the closing and just the general smoothness and timeliness of it.
Yeah, and the appraisal there are time challenges that are coming up with the lack of appraisers out there and all the stuff that's going on in the market. So you've talked a little bit, but I want to go a little bit more on this about the agents that are not doing this and why they wouldn't be doing it. But what would you say a percentage that are actually doing the pre-inspections?
From what we're guessing, it looks like about 10% of buyer or sellers are doing their pre-inspections. You'll talk to a lot of agents that will say that they don't want their agents to know, or their sellers to know certain things in advance. But my feeling is the buyer's inspector is going to find it.
Yes.
I also believe that it protects my seller, because if we're disclosing everything, in fact, we're disclosing things we didn't know about because the inspector is finding things that the seller often didn't know about. So I also feel like it's protecting my sellers from any disclosure issues on the seller disclosure statement.
That makes sense as well. So are there any other reasons why the other 90% would not be doing pre-inspections?
They don't want to change the way they do business.
Yeah,
and
just
I feel
doing
like
things the same way.
We change things all the time because the market constantly changes. Are we in a seller's market, a buyer's market, a balanced market? This system, actually, we were doing it even in a slow market because we still want to control the process and we still want to make it a smoother process.
Well, when you're in negotiation, it is all about who has more control.
Absolutely.
Right? In any type of negotiation.
I jokingly sort of tell my sellers, I'm a control freak, but it's on your behalf.
There you go.
I'm a control freak because I want to make it easy for them.
Yes.
There's nothing more disheartening than you accept an offer and you get through the inspection and it's 15 days later and the seller is moving on mentally and they're packing up, and then we quote unquote fail an inspection, and here we are going back on the market. And in that scenario, sellers almost never get what they got on the first round of offers.
Yes.
And so that's a detriment to my sellers to go back on the market.
So when the buyers that are coming in, what would you say the percentage of buyers on your listings when you're representing the seller, you're doing the pre-inspection, what do you say the percentage of the buyers are actually going and getting their own inspection?
They are not.
Yeah, and so that's another benefit too as well, Barb, right? Because if you've got 20 people looking at the home or 10 doing their own pre-inspection, they're doing the pre-inspection prior to, and you've got all these inspectors coming into the home. That's craziness.
It's hard on the house. My record was I was once with my inspector on an inspection for a buyer of mine, and there were 8 inspections happening on the home at the same time. Wow. There were 16 of us in the house because there was an agent and a buyer and a buyer's agent, all inspecting the home at the same time. That's hard on it. The other thing is in the industry, I feel like it's my job partly to protect the market because buyers are getting what we call buyer fatigue.
Yes.
I've had buyers spend $2,200 in inspections because they had to do 6 inspections before they won a house.
Yeah.
Because right now it's almost impossible to have an inspection contingency. And so now what's happening is buyers are going out inspecting 4, 5, 6 homes before they win a home. Well, that's a disservice to the whole real estate economy as well, because those people are going to start sitting out the market.
Yeah.
And that's not good for my sellers either.
Well, maybe there'll be a time when they're constantly changing things. It'll be a requirement for a seller to have to do a pre-inspection. Who knows? Whole nother topic. So we talked a little bit about the repairs, but let's say that there is a really big repair. What are the options for the seller?
Sure. So we can actually get the work done, of course. If the seller has the funds to do it, they can pay for it in advance. There's also some vendors that'll get paid out of closing. So as long as it's a significant issue and it can get paid fairly relatively quickly after closing, vendors will get paid that way. Lots of times we just get bids for it, again, to eliminate the unknown, or we just price it as is.
So, Barb, what about staging? What are you doing with your sellers for staging the property?
So I tend to do more for my sellers than I think almost any agent does. So we do the pre-inspections. I cover that cost. I meet the inspector there. We stage our homes. I send my cleaners through. To me, it's all about proper presentation of a home. It sounds sort of weird, but it's not about marketing right now because every home is getting marketed. I mean, it's really sort of a level playing field. I can't set myself apart by saying I'm a better marketing vehicle or better agent than anybody else because everything's online. So for me, I have to help my sellers properly present their home, which I think is far more important than marketing it in this market. So we do send our stagers through. I do a lot of my own staging. We carry inventory. If I have to bring a stager in, we front that cost for the seller. And things sell relatively quickly, but all of it is presentation of the house right now.
And the presentation of the home is what's going to bring in the multiple buyers. It's going to, bid up that house and ultimately get the seller a higher net. And isn't that what it's all about?
Absolutely. That's what I'm in business for, is to get my sellers top dollar.
Unless you're working for the buyer.
That's a different story. But today's all sellers.
Exactly. So what are you seeing with inventory, Barb, in our area here? Are you seeing that inventory is getting better, or? Inventory
did come up, I feel like, right before the 4th of July weekend. Things I feel like have not slowed, but have gotten slightly more manageable. And what I mean by that, instead of selling in 4 days, we're selling in 7 days. Instead of one house coming on a week for each of my buyers, we might be seeing 3 or 4 houses a week. So I tend to be less specific with the numbers and monitoring absorption rates, but in my personal business, I'm seeing that we've got more inventory and it's not quite as frenzied.
Yeah, so that's good. We're going to wrap up my time here, Barb, but I want to leave with a challenge. So in a seller's arena, what challenge are they having and what should they be doing to? And I guess I could just answer it right now because this is about pre-inspection, but outside, a big challenge is dealing with the inspection issue, and the solution to that is get a pre-inspection. Anything else that you can advise my sellers?
Yeah, I really think it's about general presentation of it. You've got to have them cleaned. I send my cleaner through. I got tired of thinking white glove clean meant something different to each of my sellers. And, because with buyers, it's not about necessarily always how it looks. It's about how it feels.
Yes.
And it's all those things that make the house feel good. And women buy on those feelings. Men tend to buy more on the numbers. So you got to speak to both of those personalities.
Makes total sense. Barb, thank you so much for joining me in studio and talking with my listeners.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tina.
Coming up next in the Money Hour, tax problems and how to avoid them. Greg Nunn with None Better Tax Resolution right here on 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.